Hey YouTube, the Tadpole's back after a month-long hiatus, a week and a bit now into 2021. But before looking forward, we have to look back. I thought I would do a little year in review 2020 recap, short little video before jumping into the first three cards on Fight Island. Just run over some stats, my record, how our bets went, best and worst calls, things like that. So across last year, ended up having a total of 23 episodes. The first episode, the inaugural Tadpole Tactics prediction video, was Woodley versus Burns on May 31st. So yeah, only about 6 months of predicting last year for 23 episodes. And we hit at 62% clip, so 78 correct predictions, 47 incorrect predictions, and one draw, which was that Figueroa Moreno title fight just a month or so ago. And then our underdog record, hitting 48% of underdogs, 22 correct selections and 24 incorrect selections. So if you're looking at the percentages, not really that great. I do get that. Lots of YouTube tipsters out there hit it over 70%. But kind of what I need to factor in for myself is the fact that I often select underdogs at a higher clip than other prediction guys, other tipsters, simply due to the fact that I'm kind of going on this verdict system, and I choose spots of value when the multiplier offered on verdict is just too high, and we're going to reap a higher reward for choosing them. That's why I'm keeping a separate record of my underdog selections, which does sit at just under 50%, which is pretty good in my opinion, considering the size of some of the underdogs we take. Just to kind of elaborate on that, is like an example is in the last card of last year, Thompson versus Neal, I actually selected Alex Morono to beat Anthony Pettis. Not a great call. If I was purely predicting fights, I would have had to choose Pettis. He is the better fighter, more accomplished fighter, but a case could be made for Morono, which I did make, and at 5.82 times on verdict, he was the far better play. And he won the first round of that fight, which just goes to show the fight was closer than the odds suggested. And if you take plays like that, you're going to end up winning more than you lose. On the same card, I took Rob Font at 6.29 times to beat Moraes. Same thing. If I was purely predicting the fight, I may have sided with Marlon. But, all the value was with Font. Marlon was 1.12 times, and we landed a monster XP game by taking the risk on him. So that's just kind of a way of me kind of coming up with some excuses for my shitty prediction record. As for verdict and kind of our chips, or our winning tokens, we got a belt 6 times last year, a gold badge 3 times, silver badge 4 times, a bronze 6 times, and actually fell to no rank 4 times, which is pretty disappointing. I'd like to run through kind of my best verdict calls. When I looked through, it was kind of nice to see which ones we hit. I had the biggest XP gain of the year was me selecting Michel Pereira to sub Zalim Imadaev. I did call a round 1 submission that happened in round 3. A little controversial with the tap as well, but it didn't matter. We called that on the video at 86.14 times, and by fight night it closed all the way to 48.65 times, so a few other sharp tipsters on that with me, but that was a monster gain. My next largest collect was Marvin Vittori to sub Carl Roberson in round 1. I called that on my video at 26.51 times, and again closed on fight night to 14.38 times. And that was a great call. He had about 4 or 5 submission attempts in the first round, going for guillotines. As soon as he went for the rear naked choke, it was over. My next highest collect was Ed Herman to sub Mike Rodriguez. It was a controversial call as well, because he did get essentially knocked out with a body shot just prior to that, but the ref saved us, calling it a low blow, and we ended up getting the sub. Kimura called that at 26.63 times, closed again on fight night to 20.24 times, so plenty of value there. They're my top 3. A few honourable mentions were Teixeira to sub Santos, called that at 12.07 times, closed into 10.21, great call. And then another one, Royval to sub Kaikara France, called that at 15.69 times, and again closed to 10.43 times. So yeah, as you can see there, lots of submissions. Typically the highest paying multiplier is a submission. It's kind of the value thing on verdict. So a bit of a trend there. My worst verdict calls, not nice to go back through. By the numbers, the shortest favourite that I took who lost was Maria Agapova over Shayna Dobson. You know, she was a 1.17 times favourite in that fight. Everyone was pretty certain she was going to dominate after she kind of disposed of Hannah Cifers in her UFC debut, but she ended up getting TKO'd in the second round, and that hurt. She was also a massive betting favourite in that fight. Just goes to show the unpredictable nature of MMA, particularly women's MMA. In Agapova's defence, she did do her ACL in that fight. She's been rehabbing that since late August 2020, and hopefully look to come back later in this year, which I do look forward to. My next worst call by the numbers, again at 1.17 times, Alexander Gustafsson to beat Fabricio Verdum. It was Gus's heavyweight debut. You know, already a guy at light heavyweight with pretty fast, pretty solid hands. I thought he was going to be able to piece up Fabricio. You know, in Verdum's fight prior, he was actually getting boxed up by Alexei Oleinik, which just kind of went to show the vast difference that should have been there for Alexander, the massive advantage he had. So I was relatively confident Alex would get it done, but he just couldn't keep Fabricio off him. Couldn't even defend one of the takedown attempts, and subbed in the first round. We haven't seen either of those guys since. We're not going to see Verdum again in the UFC at least. Signed with PFL late last year. And yeah, I don't know where Gustafsson's at. Alright, my third worst call, a bit of an obscure one, was actually Abdul Razak Al Hassan to beat Munir Lazez on one of the Fight Island cards at 1.18 times. A few predictors actually went out and picked Munir Lazez, who that's a really sharp call because he dominated the decision there in 3 rounds, handled the power. It was his UFC debut. It was an awesome performance. We haven't seen him since, but kind of stock's gone up on him big time. Compared to that, we've seen Al Hassan once since, and he got knocked out really bad by Chaos Williams in the first round. You know, his shine has rubbed off a bit. I think the out of the cage scenario for Al Hassan has affected his performances. But yeah, keen to see him get back and hit some form again. But, you know, that was a bad call there. 1.18 times, really, really short favourite. Now, I just wanted to throw this one in there because it's not a bad call by the numbers. He was a 4.46 times underdog on verdict, but of the entire year, the call that left the worst taste in my mouth was tipping Jacob Malkoun against Phil Hawes, and I had Malkoun by knockout. I was confident on him, like I betted on him. He was in multis, and when he got knocked out in 20 seconds, I just wanted to curl up into a ball. You know, that was really early morning Australian time, about 3 a.m. I was up with some mates watching that Khabib Gaethje card, and they didn't let me live that call down then, and they don't plan on it anytime soon. And I'm my own harshest critic. That was a bad one. Speaking of the bets, it's a good transition into my 2020 recap of my betting record. So the multi per annum, multi per half annum. For those of you that don't know, I call it that simply because we hit 1 or 2 a year. We're making profit across 40 UFC events, typically about 40, 45 UFC events a year. So at these odds, we kind of work out a profit if we just hit a handful, less than. And we managed to do that last year. So from 24 multis, we hit 3, lost 21 for a profit of 51.709 units. Our single play is a bit of a different story. From 32 total plays, we only had 8 wins, 22 losses, and 2 pushes, 2 voids, betting on fights that got cancelled, for a total of a negative 5.17 units, so a loss there. Combining the 2 records for a total profit of 46.539 units. So yeah, still in the green, but that single players needs some work, which we plan on doing. I'd just like to go over, because there's only 3 for the year, I'd like to, you know, stay on the highs and run over those winning multis. The first multi that we won was just actually a month into our predicting, or 3 weeks. I think it was the 3rd card I broke down. It was on June 14th, the Cynthia Calvillo versus Jessica Eye card. You know, we had Jordan Espinoza to beat Mark De La Rosa, Andre Fili to beat Charles Jourdain, Vittori to submit Roberson, one of my best verdict calls of the year. And then Calvillo to beat Jessica Eye in round 4-5 all decision at $40.09. We hit that. I was stoked with that. That really got the blood pumping. Of course, not many people viewing my videos, but if anybody else got in there on any of these multis or any of my bets and had a win last year, show yourself in the comments. I appreciate it. My second winning multi of the year was actually on the Overeem Sakai card on September 5th. The legs within that one was we had Andre Muniz to beat Bartosz Fabinski. We had Michel Pereira to beat Salim Imadaev. OSP to beat Alonso Minifield, and then Alistair Overeem to beat Augusto Sakai. We actually had another leg in that. I think we had Carol Rosa. That fight was cancelled. So this multi was also at $40 odds. Without that leg, down to $23.54. We won that, we cashed that, and we were rolling in a lot of profit. The third winning multi of the year was only 3 weeks after that on the Adesanya Costa card on September 27th. The legs within that one, only a 3-legger, had Hakeem Dawodu to beat Zubaira Tukhugov. Brandon Royval with the double chance to either submit or decision Kai Kara France. And then the final leg, Adesanya to knock out Paulo Costa at $20.71 to 1. Very well positioned multi there. Never looked in doubt once we got past the Royval submission. And yeah, a nice way to profit for the year, and a total of 51.709 units there in the multi section. Single bets, like I already mentioned, there's not that many good ones. We only had 8 wins on the year. It's been my worst section since recording, and we're obviously at a loss when looking at this section alone. However, I still have had a couple of good calls. My most fruitful was Davison Figueroa to submit Alex Perez at $5.50. My verdict call for that was a first round submission, called a guillotine, hand up. Thank you very much. I'll cash that respect. And you know, $5.50 was crazy value, which made it more obvious to see when 3 weeks later, you know, he was $3.50 to submit Marino, who's probably a handier black belt than Alex Perez anyway. So yeah, we had an edge in that one for sure. My next best single bet was just Glover Teixeira straight up to beat Thiago Santos at $3.07. A real big underdog. Like I highlighted in that breakdown, likely was always going to need to battle some adversity, but that's just trademark Glover, especially late in his career. He has made it a habit of fighting through damage, but he does, so fuck, good on him. And then my last kind of best call, although I got lucky with the decision, I did ride with Frankie Edgar to beat Pedro Munoz on their August 23rd main event, paying $3 there. I scored the fight for Munoz. I thought he did more damage, but Frankie stayed busy, did what he needed to do to get that decision, and I was not complaining cashing that $3 single, because yeah, if we didn't, the single play record would be even worse, and I can't afford that. So yeah, that's kind of a 2020 year in review. I'd like to just now look forward to the Tadpole's most anticipated matchups of 2021. You know, some of these fights are slated already, or some of them are just a fantasy matchup in my head, or could potentially be matchups if a few things go right early on in the year. But yeah, I'm going to run through every weight class and say one fight from each weight class that I would love to see. So starting off at the bottom, women's strawweight 115 pound division, I really want to see Rose Namajunas versus Weili Zhang this year. I know that the Zhang Joanna 2 will be awesome, but this is a crazy matchup. Rose, really, really good, entertaining stand-up. Both girls really strong. Weili's ran through the division. Rose has done similar things, and yeah, I think that's just a great matchup. At 115, at women's flyweight, I actually really want to see Tyler Santos versus Lauren Murphy. I've given myself a little bit of agency to look down the rankings. Valentina seems too good. Not that many matchups for her that I want to see in particular, other than the Nunez cross weight kind of matchup. But I feel like this Tyler Santos Lauren Murphy matchup makes a lot of sense. Santos is incredibly well rounded. I messed up, tipped Gillian Robertson in that Thompson Neal card late last year, or the last card of last year, as I thought she was going to be the better grappler, and Santos would have an edge in striking I was so wrong. She bodied Gillian Robertson on the mat. So impressive. And then you've got Lauren Murphy, a veteran, been there forever, conditioning like no other, who hits really hard, although a little slow. And not her first submission victory in her career in her last fight. So I feel like that makes a lot of sense, and that kind of is really working towards a number one contender slot at flyweight between those two girls. I think Lauren Murphy's ranked 5th, Tyler Santos maybe 11th, off the top of my head, so it seems like a good matchup. Women's bantamweight, 135 pounds. I want to see this year Aspen Ladd versus Holly Holm. Aspen Ladd kind of seems like a protege that could do it. She failed in her first big test against Jermaine Durandamy. GDR did go on then to get the title shot. But what I love to see from that was Aspen Ladd actually came back, knocked out Yana Kunitskaya in impressive fashion in her return fight. And she is a bullish, entertaining scrapper. And she hits hard. As for Holly Holm, I don't know, I don't really want to see her fight. But she is that name value. If Aspen Ladd defeats, then she gets a title shot. And on the same token, if Holly Holm does beat Aspen Ladd, then maybe give her another go round. I'm not sure. How many chances can she get? But, these two were slated to fight in March 2019, which was a long time ago now, like 2 years in terms of the layout of the division and the top 10. But I think that matchup suits them both now. And I'd love to see it. Women's featherweight. I actually don't care. I don't have a matchup I'd like to see at women's featherweight. There's about 8 fighters in the division. Give me Nunez versus a wet paper bag. That'll go down a treat. I know Nunez is slated to fight Megan Anderson. Good on her. Megan Anderson is from Australia, so am I. Will I be rooting for her? I'm not sure. Probably not. I love Nunez. Give me Nunez versus Cyborg at featherweight. Bring her back. That's the only thing I'd pay for. Alright. To the male division now. At the bottom, 125 flyweights. I want to see Brandon Royval versus Alex Perez. Both of these guys off losses to opponents who are going to be fighting back-to-back title fights in Figueroa and Moreno. I think this fight has the potential to be exciting everywhere. I don't think anyone's going to challenge me that this will be an awesome scrap. As for skill sets, Perez probably more damaging in regards to his kicking game, his leg kicks, but Royval just so complete with the angles and use of all 8 limbs. A great Muay Thai game. And then, the ground games as well. It's going to be Scramble City. Cardio for days. Volume for days at 125. Sign me up. That will be fireworks. Love that fight. Next weight class along, male bantamweight. I want to see TJ Dillashaw versus Rob Font. Rob Font did call out TJ after his win over Marlon Moraes. I feel like this is an underrated matchup, the one that's gone under the radar. It would be TJ's comeback fight from blood doping or whatever the fuck he did. Some sort of cheating. I'm pretty sure it was blood doping. And yeah, Font looks so good. Both guys dangerous strikers. Both guys also good wrestling ability. I feel like TJ goes to it a little more offensively, but we saw how dangerous Font can be down there when he finished Marlon on the ground. I think this would be a war on the feet. And yeah, I think that's a great one. Again, sign me up, pen to paper. Male featherweight. Ryan Hall versus Bryce Mitchell. A little grappler's paradise. Ryan Hall can't get a fight. No one wants to. Bryce Mitchell would sign that fight and I would watch that. Maybe it would be a lackluster. Maybe they would strike as both guys respect each other's ground games. If so, I would edge Bryce Mitchell. I feel like he has a better striking skill set. But both are game as hell and I feel like both will go to ground and we would just see some ridiculous positions. Things you should only see in BJJ competitions. I think that would be awesome. And yeah, I feel like a lot of people would be excited for that fight as well. Moving up to 155. This is a no-brainer. The fights I want to see at 155, most of them involve Conor McGregor, and I would love to see him take on Justin Gaethje. Yeah, I don't think I need to explain myself with this. It's got star power. It would potentially be belt on the line, especially if McGregor gets through Poirier in a couple of weeks' time. Yeah, that's just an awesome fight. Up to 170 now. Again, bit of a no-brainer. Give me Usman versus Colby, number 2. The first one did not disappoint. I could not see the second one being any different. Still beef. Colby reckons there's controversy. I don't. I feel like it was pretty cut and dry, that stoppage, but I'll watch him run it back for sure. That'll be a great fight. Up to middleweight, 180, 185. Robert Whittaker versus Costa, absolute title eliminator. Apparently this is already the next fight being made. I'm sure that Adesanya's going to go up, contend Blachowicz, and then likely want to come down and defend again. But if he decides to stay up there, this Whittaker-Costa matchup could 100% be for a vacant middleweight belt. Costa's first career loss, how does he respond after getting broken down in such a manner? Whittaker also losing to Adesanya, but then just looking amazing since. He is the clear second best in the middleweight division, in my opinion. And yeah, it would just be, again, the movement of Whittaker, the speed of Whittaker versus kind of that power pressure of Costa. Who prevails? I don't know. That's a pick'em, and that's a great scrap. Light heavyweight now. This is a fantasy matchup. The fight I want to see at light heavyweight is Glover Teixeira versus Israel Adesanya. Obviously, a few things have to go our way. Israel has to beat Yan, but if that happens, Glover's next in line at 205, and he probably gets that fight against Adesanya, that money fight. And this, in my opinion, outside of John Jones, who looks like a heavyweight for the rest of his career now, is his most dangerous matchup. Glover, man, just so durable, can take a shot. Who hits harder out of Adesanya and Thiago Santos? They do similar things. Adesanya's a better striker, yes, but Thiago hits really fucking hard, and Glover ate it all. Like, what if Izzy can't get him out of there? And then Glover just does Glover things. I know Adesanya's takedown defense is impeccable, but yeah, there's so many questions in this fight. Adesanya probably be a big favourite, especially if he gets rid of Blachowicz impressively. But there's just so many factors that go into that matchup that intrigue me, and I would love to see that fight. That's what I want to see, especially for Teixeira, just a battle-tested veteran, been in the game forever. I would love to see him get a fight like that at the as the curtains close on a decorated career. Last weight class, we've been going for a while, longer than I thought actually. Heavyweight matchup, my fantasy matchup for 2021. It's got to be John Bones Jones versus Francis Ngannou. Apparently Stipe versus Ngannou is already in talks. That fight may happen, whatever. That's fine, I'll watch that fight again. But I want to see how Bones hangs with the heavyweights. But then not just any heavyweight, with the hardest hitter we've ever seen in Francis Ngannou. And similar body frames, 6'4", 80-inch reaches. Yeah, that's it. Similarly to that Glover Adesanya for different reasons, but that is just an intriguing matchup. Sure to be entertaining, and John Jones has talked about how at light heavyweight his motivation was lackluster, and that's perhaps why his performances were just lackluster as well. He cannot afford to be lackluster against Francis Ngannou, and he knows that, and I think we would see the return of a really elite Bones in that one. Alright, I think I've gone for long enough. I'll get a video out in a couple of days' time for the Holloway Cater card. At this stage, I'm feeling I won't release a video for the Chiesa Magny card midweek, but then I'll definitely get the hours back in for the McGregor-Poirier event. So yeah, I think you'll see me twice across the next 2 weeks. Don't get sick of me and soak it all up on this 25-minute recap. But aside from that, thanks for tuning in, guys. Hopefully 2021 is going to be as profitable and fruitful as 2020. And yeah, catch up.